Hey, what's going on, people? What's good, YouTube? How we doing? How's everybody holding up out there, huh? My bad, things have been a little crazy, especially weather-wise. I don't know how you guys did, but we're covered with snow everywhere right now, so. But we don't need to worry about that right now. Right now, I just want to have a little conversation with you, but I've been itching to have for a little while. And this one is actually decades in the making because this conversation was circulating years ago when I was younger or whatever. And even then, this subject irritated me. It actually, I won't even lie, that straight up, it pissed me off. I was offended by it. And now that I have the opportunity to speak on it on my own platform, I want to do that. And specifically, the argument that I'm referring to is the opinion that rap is crap. And it's actually very ironic that I can finally have this conversation with you guys right now because, I won't lie, I didn't watch it, but I know that the Grammys just happened, and among a lot of other things that happened and what was said and whatever, I know that Kendrick Lamar got, what was it, another 4 or 5 Grammys for GNX. Clips got, I think, at least a Grammy for Let God Sort 'Em Out. Tyler, the Creator, got a Grammy again. So not only was it West Coast friendly artists that won Grammys, but it's artists that are doing the most right now as far as pushing the culture forward or keeping the culture moving. And I guess the biggest part of it for me would be where the craft is concerned and the output of content. Because when I was a kid, back in the day, the popping songs were like, things like Will Smith's Miami, or Getting Jiggy with It, or I remember Kid Rock had just put out Ball with the Ball, and Limp Bizkit had all the kids that I was going to school with going crazy with hot dog and chocolate starfish flavored water. My bad, I had to think about that for a second. And that album cover still, the name of the album cover still trips me. And then, but also the biggest and most elite artists of the time started up back then. And I'm obviously talking about none other than my GOAT, the big boy Eminem. He was just starting to piss everybody off with his extremely bizarre, explicit, over-the-top content, delivery, his style, his whole persona. Let's be real here. His whole persona. But that's actually the perfect place to transition into something more relevant to the topic of this discussion, and that would be the craft itself, how it's created. Something that I would be very familiar with because it's the whole reason that I love the genre so much. The songwriting, the song crafting, the evolution of it, the simplicity of it, the skills and techniques that go into it, all of that. that is, in my own opinion, unfortunately, the aspect of the genre as a whole that I feel like people don't pay enough attention to, they don't pay enough credit towards, they don't speak up in support of. And of course, I don't expect the average listener to, go right to that when they're hyping up a song or an artist or whatever. But for a purer listener like myself, or your Knox Hill, or your Screwface John, or even the homie Flawed and Mo, shout out Mo, and even I do kind of want to throw Stevie Knight in there and No Life Shack, but they don't really dive as deep as other people do. But bottom line is, they are active listeners and participants in the genre, so they break things down with a far more fine-tooth comb than most people. And they know to listen for the nuance of things. And that's what I love about it. The technicalities of it. All the reasons that made artists huge at a point in time. It wasn't just about... Actually, no, it wasn't about sounding the same. Eminem didn't sound like an Ice Cube, didn't sound like a Kid Rock, didn't sound like a Limp Bizkit, didn't sound like a Nelly, a Wayne, a Wu-Tang, a Method Man. Oh my God, I can jump all over the map. Nobody sounded alike. I don't even know, if you want me to be really honest with you, I don't know how the hell Master P sounds the way he does when Wheezy, Birdman, and everybody else sound all high pitched. It makes no sense to me, but I digress, that's beside the point. But my point being, really break it down to the most simplistic level. Rapping, or rhythmic African poetry, or maybe rhythmic American poetry, I'm honestly not sure. I just heard once that it was actually called that one day. I'm not even sure if that's actually true. You can feel free to verify for me if you know the answer. But rap music is literally just speaking to a beat. And I guess whatever you decide to speak on is what you decide to speak on. But the bottom line is, that's all that it is. You're just tapping out some sound and then speaking in time with that sound. The speaking that you're doing just coincidentally happens to rhyme in pattern with itself. And then it just goes from there. There's A, B, there's A, B to B, A, there's, for everybody who understands song crafting. And then there's, single syllable rhyming, double syllable rhyming, triple syllable rhyming, multi-syllabic rhyming, slant rhyming. All these techniques and devices that are used in poetry and soliloquies and haikus and whatever devices your fancy, all those same parts are found within those devices, are composed of those devices. Those compositions are composed of those devices. And when you really get into when you dive deep into the patterns of it and the, you know, how they're used and how they're used throughout the um the piece, the project, and what they're meant to communicate to you, it's actually an incredibly simple yet impressive, technical, intricate art form. Or at least that part of it is. I mean, the whole thing is really, but that part of it is the meat and potatoes of it, if you will. You know, and it kicks me in my ass, the fact that people can't appreciate that part of it, even if the lyrics themselves are my coochie pink, my booty hole brown, or fuck that nigga, shoot out his brains, or fuck her, bust a nut and dip. Which, to be honest with you, I've never understood the outrage over something like that. Because any love song that I've ever heard from when I was a child, some songs that I grew up with, everything was always about spending the night with you, making love to you, you know, some beautiful romantic way of basically referencing sex. So, and everybody loves the music and thinks it's beautiful and what yada yada whatever. Here's my thing. How is that any different from, I guess I want to make love in this club wouldn't be a good reference, but like Freak a Leak, Splash Waterfalls, Some Cut, my favorite, Lollipop, my real WAP. There's actually a lot of good ones coming out now than there was in the last 10-15 years, but whatever. But anyways, like, my point being, like, sex is sex. You know, whether you're gently telling a woman in a song that you want to make love to her all night, or you're telling the hoe in the club that you want her to choke on your dick all night long and swallow your kids. And also that brings up an even further point, because other than the sexualization and the actually calling women sluts and whores and bitches, like, I can understand it being degrading and, you know, every other negative thing that comes along with it. I get that. I'm not saying it doesn't. What I am saying is, consider the source. And let's get it out of the way right now. I don't mean, oh, well, it's a black artist, so of course they're going to say stuff like that. They're ignorant and stupid and blah, blah, blah. We're not doing the race thing here. And I kind of want to say I can't do the race thing because I'm not white, but that's beside the point because it's not true either. But we're not doing the race thing. The race thing is too easy. What we are going to say, we're going to take that deep dive, because that's what I do. It's all about nuance. I'm Mr. Nuance here. What we are going to do is we're going to look at the messengers. African American men and women from allegedly impoverished neighborhoods who are creating art from the self-expression of their own lives. So what do their own lives consist of? Unfortunately, probably guns, drugs, prostitutes, hookers, and whores. Oh, there's the whores. Nah, we found it. And just men and women with egos trying to get ahead, get through bad situations. You know, crack houses, gang neighborhoods, crooked cops, abusive and addicted parents or families. It's a mess out there, people. Even if it isn't in your neighborhood. You know, even if you, much like me, don't have to walk around and worry. We don't all have it that good. I mean, shit, I'm not white. I'm probably kind of lucky to have it that good. But don't think for a second I don't realize it. I always have. And that's what I mean. That's why you gotta listen to the art that's in your ear, because the thing that I hate about the whole thing the most is a lot of the garbagest, most low quality productions are what's pushed into our ears, yours and mine, and everybody else's. It's called mainstream for a reason. The industry gets behind these artists that create a buzz, blow them up and make them bigger, but there's always that little space you have to stay in. You can't wiggle too much in one direction or the other, because you'll compromise all of that money you're making at the moment. The money that in the next 2-3 years, even that's going to start getting smaller. It's a vicious system. And the industry, the culture isn't waking up to the game. It took them 20, 25. It took the vets and the OGs their career to become gatekeepers, head honchos, the ones in charge now. And while that is an accomplishment, that might not necessarily be a good thing. But that also depends on who specifically we're talking about. There's, as I said, nuance. These different conversations can go every which way. And a lot of them all have. I'm sure we'll get into that. But I just really wish that people, instead of hearing something that they think they don't like and just totally turning it off, I wish people that listened and sat with it and thought about it, analyze it, digest it, process it, let it stick, let it get familiar with it. Because in the end, yeah, everybody is saying the same thing, but it isn't always, especially in hip-hop, it isn't always what you say so much as how you say it, or possibly even who's saying it. Even that gets deeper and deeper. There's even levels to that. That's all I'm saying. Took me 20 minutes to tell you there's levels to the shit. You just gotta allow yourself to sink below the surface. There's a lot more there. The best players know that. That's why they're called elites. Yeah. That's why they're veterans and OGs. They didn't know what we know. We'll get into more of that some other time. But for now, thanks for listening, guys. I appreciate it. Talk soon.